outdoors on a sunny day. It was a lot more fun and exciting. I'm going to try and be as loud and obnoxious and insufferable as possible to keep folks awake. Good evening! Welcome to the People's Public Hearing on the proposed $1.4 billion Rose Quarter Freeway expansion in the backyard of Harriet Tubman Middle School. My name is Aaron Brown. I use he, him pronouns, and I organize with No More Freeways. Tonight we are going to air our community concerns against the Oregon Department of Transportation's proposal to widen I-5 through the Albina neighborhood. I think everyone is already aware this event is being live streamed, so you can go watch all the greatest hits a little bit later this evening. And this video will be submitted as testimony for the public comment period, which ends tomorrow. We're going to talk about that in a moment. First, real quick, we've got bathrooms that are around the corner up by the food, and the food is up that way. Robin and some of the Sunrise teams have been doing great on the sign-in when you walked in. If you haven't already signed in, please do. And that's where you can sign up to testify. We've got a handful of folks that already signed up, and if you showed up thinking, I don't want to speak, well, this is your chance to really tell ODOT how you really feel. So I hope throughout the evening and hearing some of the facts and stuff we're putting out, I hope you feel inspired to stick up and say something. Throughout this event, we also, in the back corner, Vive, our team, and the postcards. We have postcards that you can write to Secretary Pete Buttigieg, to Governor-elect Tina Kotek. How awesome is that to say? For Governor Tina Kotek, and to hand off to ODOT. And so if you want to just write your little message, we would love for you to do that as well. Everyone should have gotten many folks when they walked in got a Post-it note. If you didn't, you can go get one up front. And throughout the course of the evening, either after you give testimony or during someone giving really good testimony, we would like you to write your name on the postcard, and this visual aid that we've established up here. Should ODOT conduct an environmental impact statement? And throughout the evening, if you think the answer is yes, they should, you can go and put your Post-it here. And if throughout the evening you think, no, I trust ODOT, shout out to Claire for these amazing visuals. You can put your Post-it on this side. And the final note, you'll notice on all of the things that are on all the tables, we've got a little QR code. That takes you to the No More Freeways website where you can submit online written comment, which will go until midnight tomorrow. So if you haven't, I see many people in here that I know have already written some comments, and if you haven't, I know you're getting ready to do so in the next day. Please share the link widely however any universe of friends and roommates and neighbors and colleagues that you think would be willing to put their name on the line. Even just one or two words about it really makes a difference. I'm going to give a quick overview, and then we're going to get going on the testimony, so you don't have to listen to me all that much anymore, right? Where are we right now? Well, we are on lands that were stolen as recently as 170 years ago. The Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, and Molalla tribes all lived in this land before white people showed up. This is a very abbreviated history. Decades of racist planning led to Albina, where we are standing today, to become the largest black neighborhood in the state of Oregon. In the 1950s, there were 365 homes approximately destroyed by urban renewal schemes, and of those, a total of approximately 450 were destroyed by ODOT in the construction of Interstate Avenue, where the yellow line is today, I-5, and the Kirby Avenue off-ramp on the Fremont Bridge. This process of urban renewal was deliberate. It was mediated plundering of the black community. It divided and destroyed the neighborhood and added significant air pollution, noise pollution, and car traffic through a community already struggling with economic disinvestment, redlining, drugs, and racist law enforcement and over-policing. This wasn't accidental or unique. Flush with federal cash and local racist leadership, eager to displace communities of color, similar freeway projects decimated black and brown communities in dozens of other cities in America, from Miami to St. Paul, from Tulsa to Los Angeles. The building that you are sitting in here today was opened in the 1950s before the freeway was established. Tubman served as a major black institution for the Albina neighborhood, and it was the site of numerous protests in the 1980s as the black community fought Portland Public Schools' efforts to relocate the school through their desegregation initiatives. The school was closed for a few decades, but it reopened in 2018. But when it did reopen, Portland Public Schools had to spend $20 million on the air purifiers that are above this roof that we're above the roof where we're sitting today. And that's $20 million that could have been going into all sorts of other education initiatives. But for Portland Public Schools to reopen this building, they had to invest in the air purifiers. And even that doesn't change the fact that the air immediately outside this building is some of the worst in the entire state of Oregon. So please keep your masks on after you go outside. You might appreciate that. And by the way, I think everyone's already got the memo. Please wear your masks when you're standing out there. When you're willing to testify, if you're willing to take your mask off while testifying, we're totally cool with that. Really appreciate everybody wearing masks and keeping our community safe and making sure everyone can be here today that wants to. So that's the history of the neighborhood. How did we get to right here? Well, in 2017, the legislature passed and Governor Brown signed House Bill 2017, which allocated, among other things, $450 million. They said at the time that this project would cost under $500 million. It's now at about $1.5 billion. They allocated $450 million for this project, and No More Freeways founded in August of 2017. Shout out to Chris Smith, he's the guy that lets you into the building. The last rally like this we did, it was Chris's birthday. I don't know if folks remember we got to sing happy birthday to him. That was fun. Now we're applauding for him and he's not even in the room. Chris sent the email and asked everyone to come to the Lucky Lab. Hey, who wants to fight this freeway? And a bunch of community leaders, many of you have been at this event over the last weeks and months and years, and I'm just personally so grateful that people continue to show up and articulate that climate leaders don't widen freeways. No More Freeways formed in August of 2017. Our first event was at City Hall where we rallied for the comprehensive plan. The environmental assessment came out in 2019. So it was during that 45-day public comment period in the spring of 2019 when we had the first chance to tell ODOT what we thought about this project. We got over 2,000 comments on the record. 91% of them were opposed to the project. ODOT was really frustrated with that. Demands for an environmental impact statement as opposed to the environmental assessment, which ODOT is currently proposing and has conducted. We want a fuller, more thorough study that looks at alternatives to expansion. Demands for EIS came from places like Metro, the City of Portland, Audubon Society of Portland, Oregon Walks, Business for Better Portland, former State Representative Karin Power. We had that in-person public hearing at the convention center where we had dozens of folks come and speak directly to ODOT staff about why they wanted to fight this freeway in their neighborhood. The Oregon Transportation Commission approved plans in April 2020 for this project in a hearing that the public was unable to speak at or testify. And the federal government issued a finding of no significant impact saying that, okay, you can move forward with the environmental assessment plans that you came up with. So we sued because lawsuits are fun, and that's how we can really hold powerful institutions accountable. We filed 2 lawsuits in 2021, one through the Land Use Board of Appeals and statewide, and then nationally through the National Environmental Protection Act. We had a rally outside of this building. It was like one of the first events we got to do post-COVID. I'm seeing some head nods. That was a fun day. And also in 2021, it was the start of something that I'm really just honored to have been witness to, the beginning of the Youth vs. ODOT climate strikes that happened outside the Oregon Department of Transportation every other week for over a year. Those events caught the attention. Yeah, if I shut up, some of the teens will actually get to come speak and you can listen to them. They're more cool than I am. The Youth vs. ODOT protests got a ton of attention locally, statewide, and nationally. It was written up in City Lab, Vice, and the New York Times. In 2022, after all of the attention that we had focused on this, the federal government actually rescinded the finding of no significant impact that they had issued the previous 2 years ago. Without that document, ODOT cannot move forward with this project. So what ODOT is doing now is they've released a supplemental environmental assessment, which is pretty much entirely what they submitted in 2019 with some other new details. And we are in the midst of the 45-day public comment period for that, and that ends tomorrow. So that's why we're here, because ODOT decided against hosting an in-person public comment meeting, and so we said, all right, well, we'll just host our own. And so I'm really, really grateful that all of you are here today. So my final thoughts on this, No More Freeways' official response for the public comment period. Chris and Joe in particular have done incredible work going line item through line item of all the different pages of this document, finding the spots where they are lying to us, and we are going to be hearing about that directly from them and the rest of you tonight. We are in full support of buildable caps and the Hybrid 3 plan to restore the Albina neighborhood. We want to see investment. We want to see healing from the racist plundering that happened in this neighborhood 70 years ago. We still believe that this neighborhood will be healthier and safer and more vibrant if it has less air pollution and less asthma coming from additional lanes of diesel trucks running right through this neighborhood. And we have reasons for deep skepticism for ODOT's claims to the otherwise, given the ways that we've caught them fudging their traffic projections. And by doing so, that also means that they are able to manipulate how much air pollution, how much traffic congestion, and how much carbon emissions this project is going to create. So we are going to begin with some invited testimony, and then we're going to go through the folks that have signed up. If you have not signed up yet, you still can. And we are first going to start with Taylor Walker. And the extent to which folks feel comfortable getting close, I think our camera crew is eager to show as much of the crowd as possible in some of the filming. So if you're figuring out where you want to sit or stand, the more that you're within the line of sight, the more that ODOT's going to have to listen to all of these faces demanding stuff. It's time for me to shut up. Please welcome Taylor. You're going to be sitting right there. Yeah. The final remarks on this, we're going to call through folks. Next up after Taylor is going to be Nikisha. And I'm just going to announce who's speaking next and then the one or two afterwards. And if you guys want to come up and get close to the mic, we'll run it that way. We've got a couple invited testimony that might go longer than 3 minutes, but once we get to everyone else, we all got other stuff to do today. I don't want people to be here forever. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Ukiah's been deputized to shout at you if you go over your 3 minutes. Ukiah doesn't like shouting at people. Don't make her do that.
Unless it's ODOT.
Yeah, she only likes to shout at ODOT. All right, and with that, take it away, Taylor.
Okay, should I do this? Okay. Hi, my name is Taylor Walker. I'm a 16-year-old high school student. I'm also a member of Sunrise PDX. I've worked on the Youth First ODOT campaign, and I also work for Neighbors for Clean Air. I'm here today because I see an issue. Our planet is dying, and we are the cause of it. We are living in times where heat waves and fires are killing hundreds of Oregonians. I'm growing up in a world where getting to school means polluting the place I call home. 40% of Oregon's carbon emissions come from transportation. And even though elected officials know this, they're not doing anything about it. Our world is changing in devastating ways, and we're not doing enough. And honestly, I'm scared. I'm scared of this very real possibility. But what's even worse is that time and time again, after we've gone to countless meetings for city council members, Metro, and the Oregon Transportation Commission, after I and thousands of my classmates took to the streets and protested and shouted at the adults in charge of the city to change and stand up against climate change, they keep making stupid decisions like the Rose Quarter expansion project. I've been working around this project for over a year now. It is not acceptable. I'm sure most of you, especially any Tubman students here tonight, have been down past the playground and have seen this freeway. How is this acceptable? The students that go here are already breathing in some of the most polluted air in the entire city of Portland. And now they want to move the freeway closer and create more pollution? Well, they say we can just move the school. But what happens when the school is moved but eventually the air quality is toxic everywhere in the city? What then? We cannot keep prioritizing expanding freeways over the literal health and safety of the people that live here. Because what good are widened freeways on a planet where ecosystems cannot sustain food, where floods, fires, droughts, and storms only get worse with every passing year? I'm 16 years old now. Climate scientists say that our fate will be largely sealed by 2030. In 2030, I will be 23 years old. The kids that go here now will only be 19. What kind of life is that for us? Are we really willing to give up and succumb to this future? I'm not. It is time to fight. We cannot let this expansion pass. I demand that on behalf of an entire generation of Oregonians terrified of climate change, ODOT, please conduct a full environmental impact statement that studies alternatives to adding more fossil fuel infrastructure to our city. The oceans are rising, and so are we. Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Taylor. Appreciate it. Because this is our event and not ODOT's, we can be a little bit more fun. So feel free to cheer people on, like, you know, be encouraging, don't be a jerk. But I'm really grateful that we're all in the space here together today. And so I think it's really helpful that we're all affirming what everyone else is saying. So please feel free to support, especially when you have badass testimony like that. So, and the next piece of testimony is going to be really badass as well. So with that, I pass it off to Nikisha.
Might be a bit repetitive to your introduction, but I'm going to add some things here. So, good evening. My name is Nikisha Nathan. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships with Neighbors for Clean Air, a nonprofit organization that advocates to create a healthier Oregon through the reduction of air pollution, so every Oregonian can breathe clean air every day, everywhere. I'm here today because we oppose the expansion of the I-5 freeway. A full environmental impact statement must be done to study alternatives to freeway widening, alternatives that support investment in infrastructure and amplify the vision of Albina community leaders and residents to restore this neighborhood. When the I-5 freeway was completed in 1962, not only did it split through the heart of Oregon's largest Black neighborhood and demolish over 300 homes, which it never replaced, it was also built in the backyard of this school, right there. For years, students in this historically Black neighborhood have been breathing dangerous levels of pollutants from the cars and trucks using the freeway. When the levels of arsenic and petroleum byproducts that come from vehicle exhausts were found to be well in excess of local safety guidelines, Neighbors for Clean Air partnered with Portland State University and advocated for improvements to this school's indoor air quality. The PSU team designed a state-of-the-art air filtration system and a maintenance plan, which was installed as part of a $30 million renovation. A major part of a $30 million renovation. It was said just moments ago, upwards of $20 million. So now, Harriet Tubman Middle School has the best indoor air quality system in the district. However, there was still guidance from PSU researchers suggesting that students' outdoor activities be limited. It's not safe to have recess outdoors. Stay inside, where our $20 million system makes it easier for your students to breathe. Harriet Tubman students refused to remain silent as the threat of continued pollution from vehicle exhaust became clear to them. In 2019, with the help of Gerald Scrutchins, a teacher and coordinator of environmental justice groups here at the school, Neighbors for Clean Air mobilized students to head to Salem and voice their concerns. Young activists from Harriet Tubman Middle School told legislators about the impacts of air pollution on their lives, and their testimony was key to the passage of HB 2007. This is legislation that made Oregon the second state in the nation to have any regulations on the operation of big trucks to reduce diesel emissions. Their hard work and the costly improvements to this school will, however, be compromised if this freeway is expanded. ODOT has failed to adequately address the increase in air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions that will result with the addition of over 1 million additional vehicle miles of travel that will come from aspects of this design. I'm going to go back to the statement I just made before that. The hard work of the students and the costly improvements to this school will be compromised if this freeway is expanded, if we're able to see millions of miles of vehicle travel added to just overcome these improvements that have been made and all of the hard work of the students who've used their voice to tell their stories. This project is a disaster for air pollution in a community trying to heal from repeated harms caused by ODOT and institutional systemic racism. We must see a comprehensive environmental impact statement that includes alternatives to support restoration and repair. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. I don't know if anyone has decided yet whether or not they also support an environmental impact statement. Well, who's going to be the first with the Post-it note? There we go. Feel free throughout the evening. We'll see what the ultimate score is. So next up, we have one of the founding members of No More Freeways, the economist from City Observatory, Mr. Joe Courtwright.
Thank you, Aaron. It's a pleasure to be here. For the record, Joe Courtwright. I'm an economist with City Observatory, a longtime resident of Portland. And I appreciate the invitation and the slightly longer period of time that you've given me. I hope I use it wisely and to everyone's benefit. So, as Aaron mentioned, we've taken a very close look at the technical work that's been done for the Rose Quarter project. And what I want to suggest is that there are serious problems with the technical analysis. It dramatically understates the negative environmental impacts of freeway widening. And one of the tragic things about this whole discussion is half a century ago, Portland knew that expanding freeways was bad for the community. We took out Harbor Drive. We didn't build the Mount Hood Freeway. We didn't build a Prescott Freeway through North and Northeast Portland. But today, tragically, the environmental impact process has been twisted by the Oregon Department of Transportation by presenting false and misleading information about the impacts of freeways. And what I want to do is give you a quick version of the analysis that we'll be submitting in our formal comments to the Oregon Department of Transportation and the U.S. Department of Transportation. In reality, and this is a picture you won't see often, we're really talking about a mammoth freeway widening project, widening the I-5 freeway to as many as 10 lanes for 1.5 miles through North and Northeast Portland. And this comes at a time when the science on the effects of freeways is increasingly well known. We've been building freeways for 70 years in the United States, and traffic congestion has only gotten worse. And the reason for that is something called induced demand. And I know we have, I think, the songwriter who has captured that here today. Paul is somewhere behind us. But to us boring economists,
There will be musical testimony
yes,
shortly.
we're looking forward to that. So the thing I will show you is basically the journal article, which now calls this the fundamental law of road congestion. This is not in dispute. Expanding roadways encourages people to drive more, increases congestion, and increases pollution. You cannot build your way out of congestion, and yet that is exactly what ODOT is planning to do. Now, the tragic thing about this project is that despite all of the money that's been spent on so-called public outreach, nothing has really been told you about the size of the project. You're being told that by ODOT that they're just going to add 1 or 2 auxiliary lanes to this freeway. But occasionally, they let slip what this will really look like. This is a picture of what it will look like near where we are today at Tubman School, where they will literally cut away the hillside to bring the freeway even closer. And while they show a certain number of striped lanes here, they're actually planning to build a roadway that's much wider. They present this comic book illustration, which they note is, quote, not to scale, which shows the existing freeway at the top, 4 lanes of traffic, and then supposedly just adding 2 additional, quote unquote, auxiliary lanes at the bottom. That's not the reality. We found the actual plans, ones that ODOT didn't produce in the environmental assessment, ones that they kept hidden. And we found 3 different versions that showed that they're actually planning a 160-foot wide roadway. And 160 feet is wide enough for a 10-lane freeway through our neighborhoods. So this isn't this simple little expansion. It's actually a mega freeway, which could have 5 lanes of traffic in both directions in that 160-foot roadway. Well, why does that matter? Because when you expand the capacity, we know that people who are avoiding the area now will suddenly choose to take trips through it, and that will produce more pollution. We have something, called the Induced Travel Calculator, which is based on the best scientific research about the impact of adding capacity to new driving. It shows that widening this freeway would add between 31 million and 47 million additional vehicle miles of travel in the Portland area as a result. And that would produce between 200,000 and 500,000 additional tons of greenhouse gases as a result. So this is a project that we know, based on the best available scientific literature, will add to greenhouse gases. Now, ODOT has tried to deny that by claiming that they're only building those 2 additional lanes, but in reality, they're building a structure that's easily wide enough to handle much more. And what's perverse about that, in fact, is the fact that traffic in this area has actually been going down for 25 years. And these are not my numbers. These are numbers taken from the Oregon Department of Transportation. It used to be that about 135,000 vehicles a day traveled through the Rose Quarter area. That has declined to about 120,000, and that's before the pandemic. And what ODOT is saying is if we do nothing, there'll be this huge increase in traffic, but that's not been the trend in this area. So they're widening a freeway in an area where traffic has been declining for a quarter of a century. And they're proposing to do it at prodigious cost. This would probably be the most expensive freeway construction project in the United States on a per mile basis. As Aaron mentioned, the original estimates, we were told this would cost $450 million. Then that doubled to about $800 million. And the most recent estimates are it will be $1.45 billion. That works out to about $1 billion a mile for a freeway. Just imagine what you could do with $1 billion for anything else. Do we really need $1 billion to get a $1 billion a mile freeway? And what's worse is the Oregon Department of Transportation, frankly, just doesn't have the money to pay for it. Their plan, they haven't developed a plan as yet to show where the money will come from. In fact, what they've done is, in the last 2 years, shifted the money the legislature designated for this project and instead used it for the Abernathy I-205 bridge in Oregon City, which means that they now have a more than $1 billion shortfall in the amount of money that's needed for this project. But their plan is to just get the project started and spend a few $100 million getting it started and then come back with a partially finished project and ask for the additional $1 billion. That's no way to make a rational policy decision, and we shouldn't go along with it. The other thing we know, because ODOT has told us, is that the only way that they can come up with this kind of money is to put tolls on local freeways. And that this is the head of the Oregon Transportation Commission in March of last year saying they don't have the resources to build this project without tolling. And that's probably true. But the conundrum from the standpoint of an economist is if you toll these roadways, then fewer people will drive on them. So while you're spending $1 billion or $1.5 billion widening the freeway, putting tolls on it will cause fewer people to use it, which is something they've failed completely to analyze in their environmental impact statement. We do have some other work that was done, commissioned by ODOT for a separate project that shows that tolling will actually do a better job of improving congestion, that is, reducing traffic and speeding the flow of traffic than widening the freeway, because tolling would shift traffic to off-peak times and it would work better. So ironically, instead of spending $1.5 billion to widen a freeway that we don't need, if we just charged a price for its use at the peak hour, we could shift traffic and avoid a lot of the congestion problems that we have. So to summarize, this is a giant freeway. It's a 160-foot wide freeway. Don't listen to talk about so-called auxiliary lanes. It will increase traffic and greenhouse pollution according to the best available scientific information. Congestion won't go down because of induced demand. It isn't really needed because traffic in this area has stabilized and, if anything, declined. This is a hugely expensive project that they don't have the money to pay for. And if they implement tolling, we really don't even need to expand the freeway here. So with that, thank you for your comment, for your opportunity. And we do need an EIS to fully explore this. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Courtright, everybody. Next up, we have Danny Cage from Sunrise PDX. Looks like Joe's testimony was convincing. You can if you want, and it doesn't have to be on here, it can be this side, wherever you'd like it. Sorry, just a second. Yeah, go for it, Danny.
My name is Danny Cage. I'm a member of Sunrise PDX. I have the honor of serving on Oregon's Environmental Justice Council as a state board member appointed by Governor Kate Brown this year as its youngest member. More importantly, I am a high school student who should be doing math homework right now and not telling a transportation agency how to conduct itself. I am speaking here today in strong support of the Oregon Department of Transportation conducting an environmental impact statement on the proposed Rose Quarter Freeway expansion. As the climate crisis continues nationwide and more importantly statewide, it is important to me not only how we implement environmental justice in our work, but have it embedded in our process so it is not an afterthought. As both a young Oregonian who is a frontline community member, a young person, and a state board member of the Environmental Justice Council, it is important to me how ODOT conducts itself again and again. Because yes, I believe the idea that a public transit agency should be able to conduct itself in a manner that honors the citizens that it serves. Recently, Oregon passed HB 47, which allows natural resource agencies, which ODOT is defined as, to request consultation from the Environmental Justice Council. I believe that the Department of Transportation should request consultation from both the Environmental Justice Council as well as the communities that their projects affect. On the Rose Quarter proposal, as the Rose Quarter proposal has proved both past and present to be problematic, controversial, rooted in racism, lacked community collaboration, I request that ODOT not only do an environmental impact statement, but also address the impact freeways may have on noise pollution, green space, and etc. I urge ODOT to conduct an environmental impact statement and go further because I believe that an agency should think of itself not as a freeway agency, but as a transportation agency. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have the Elliott Neighborhood Association's Alan Rudwick. Alan, where are you? There he is. I promised I'd give people a heads up, and I just did not. After Alan, we've got, is Michelle DeBerry here? Michelle, you're next after Alan.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm representing the neighborhood that we're in right now, the Elliott neighborhood, which went from a population of 12,000 down to a population of 4,000 due to various planning projects, some of which you mentioned earlier, Aaron. But this area, which is close to downtown, wants to be an urban neighborhood with tall buildings and lots of people living here. This current project, which I've been following since November of 2010, began because some highway engineers think that a mistake was made many years ago, and that mistake, they believe, was that I-5 was made too narrow. However, this mistake was actually a blessing because even more cars coming through this neighborhood will be that much worse for the climate and for local air pollution, which we've been monitoring recently and hope to have more data on soon. Widening the highway is not going to make this area more livable. If this was a jobs project, we should be building something with our money that's going to actually stand the test of time. What are we getting for $1.5, $1.4 billion? We're getting something that no one wants. We could be spending that money building housing. People just worked really hard to pass a housing bond. We could have more housing at the end of spending that much money. And you could easily do the same minority contractor and all the other incentives that ODOT is trying to throw to make this project more palatable could just be done by doing a different kind of building. The interchange that's being designed appears to be trying to pump a lot more cars onto local streets into our neighborhood, which we are very opposed to. This project should be killed. If it needs an EIS to study some other alternatives, that's a good plan. If someone decides to just pull the plug on the funding for this project, that also sounds like an okay plan to us. This neighborhood wants to be an urban neighborhood. It's an inner area, it's close to downtown, it has great access to lots of things. And this project, having been hanging over the area for the last 13, 14 years, has been delaying development. I've seen multiple projects proposed and get shelved. And a big part of it is, well, what's gonna happen over there with the freeway? So hurry up, kill it already, so we can get on with building ourselves back up and realizing the vision that people have for greatness here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alan. Next up, we have Michelle, followed by Will Henderson. Michelle, thank you for being here.
Hello. My name is Michelle Dewberry, and I'm a member of the Oregon and Southwest Washington chapter of Families for Safe Streets. All of our members have lost a family member in a traffic crash or suffered a serious injury. Most of our chapter members are bereaved parents. Families for Safe Streets urges the Oregon Department of Transportation to conduct a full environmental impact statement and refocus the Rose Quarter Improvement Project to center safe transportation for non-drivers and healing the Albina neighborhood. Families for Safe Streets supports the proposed freeway cap included in Hybrid 3, as well as affordable housing and bicycle and pedestrian safety improvements. These components can and should be accomplished without the expansion of I-5, which will result in more noise, pollution, death, and injury in the surrounding community. Pedestrian traffic deaths are at a 70-year high in Portland, and yet ODOT's own analysis shows that this project will make conditions worse for people walking in the Rose Quarter. The freeway off-ramp included in Highway 3 will result in a flood of cars into the streets surrounding the Moda Center. ODOT's supplemental environmental assessment references pedestrian auto conflict, which is a sanitized way of saying human bodies, loved ones, friends, and neighbors will be struck by thousands of pounds of metal traveling at high speeds. 12 years ago, my 1-year-old son, Seamus, experienced a pedestrian auto conflict on an ODOT road. His 30-pound body did not stand a chance against the careless driver who plowed through a crowded crosswalk. He is one of hundreds of people who have been killed and injured on ODOT roads. So when I hear the agency asking taxpayers to foot the bill for a $1.5 billion highway expansion, their claims about safety ring pretty hollow. Families for Safe Streets does not accept the deaths and injuries of our loved ones, the poisoning of the air, or the destruction of our planet as acceptable trade-offs for faster freight transport or convenience of motorists. An EIS is a critical component of accountability that will ensure our tax dollars are not worsening the twin crises of traffic violence and climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up, we have William Henderson, followed by Claire Watt. Claire? There.
All right. My name is Will Henderson. I'm father of 2. also a small business owner. And a few years ago, I also started Business for a Better Portland. Got together with some other like-minded business owners, and what we found is that there's a lot of business owners out there who just don't know how to engage and what's going on, and we got together as a way to increase that engagement, representing cities that actually want to have Portland be a better place for everyone. So I've, in my work, spoken with business owners of every size, every industry imaginable. And you know, what they all say is different, but something that I hear often is we started our business in Portland for a reason. We didn't just, you know, pick Portland because it was the biggest city, the city with the best resources. A lot of it had to do with what Portland values. We're a city that values community, livability, sustainability. Those are things that brought me to Portland 20 years ago, and those are reasons why I and countless other folks have decided to start a business here. And if you think about those things, community, livability, sustainability, they all have one thing in common, and that is that they take time, they take care. That's what all of you are doing here tonight by being here, and I so appreciate that. And that is why it's so offensive for a state agency who is supposed to be working for us to be rushing through a project, trying to hit an arbitrary 2023 construction deadline they've set for themselves so that other folks can rush through our neighborhood. That is not what Portland's about. That's not why I started a business here. I don't think it's what makes Portland great. And I think we can do better. So we're asking you, ODOT, to slow down, consider the alternatives, do your homework, including a full environmental impact study, just like all of us are gonna go home and do our jobs and our homework when we get done here. And consider what makes Portland great. It might be different from the things that ODOT typically values in its processes. Thank you.
All right, we've got Claire next, followed by Ukiah.
I've cried twice in public meetings in the last 2 months, and they were both ODOT's fault, so good job, ODOT. My name is Claire Vlach, and I'm testifying on behalf of Oregon Walks. I don't have a lot of faith that anyone at ODOT will pay attention to this testimony. Here's why. I was the pedestrian representative on the 2020 I-5 Rose Quarter Community Advisory Committee. And that committee was made up of community members chosen by ODOT, including transportation advocates and people born and raised in the Albina neighborhood. As representatives of the community, we repeatedly asked ODOT if we could provide input on the single largest part of this project, the freeway. And every time ODOT said, no, we do not want to listen to you. So, since ODOT doesn't seem to care what the people think about that part of the project, I'm hoping they will care about what they claim is their number one concern: safety. So, there we have some slides, I think. Well, okay. I can describe, without the slides, some of what ODOT is planning on building. So there's going to be a new hairpin turn coming off the freeway that will take all of the existing traffic exiting from I-5 will take that hairpin turn. And that turn is so tight that ODOT requires a design exception from their own freeway manual to build it. And they estimate that this ramp will increase crashes by 13%. So, unsafe for cars. This very same exit ramp will cross the Williams Avenue bike lane. Anybody who bikes in Portland knows that's a major bike route through the city. And there's now going to be 12,500 vehicles exiting I-5 and taking Williams Avenue. Unsafe for bikes. So due to all those, due to the new location of the ramp, those cars are going to be having to make extra turns through the area, producing, just due to those extra turns, 1.3 million more miles of local vehicle traffic in the Rose Quarter, and leading to the closure of 2 separate crosswalks. Due to, this is a direct quote from the environmental assessment, increased traffic generated by the ramp. So pedestrians will have to triple the number of dangerous crossings they have to make, crossings which are made even more dangerous by the increased traffic. Yes. They will also be made more dangerous by longer crossings due to ODOT shaving off corners so that cars can drive even faster around those corners. And, well, Michelle already quoted this, but I'm going to quote it again. The project will cause increased potential for pedestrian auto conflict. ODOT is planning on spending $1.5 billion to increase the chance that somebody will end up in the hospital or at the morgue, but they won't spare a few $1 million for safety improvements on our deadly orphan highways, like Powell Boulevard and TV Highway.
We're trying to get the images of this up here. Claire's doing a really good job describing it. I'm sorry for the text, Steffu. Go on, sorry.
So, to be clear, Oregon Walks does not support freeway expansion. It is a misguided investment in an outdated transportation system with negative effects on transportation justice, air quality, climate change, and livability. And it doesn't even fix the one problem it does claim to solve, congestion. Apparently, ODOT doesn't care about any of this. And yet, in the one area ODOT does claim to care about, safety, this project is, by their own assessment, also a failure. Briefly, some things Oregon Walks does support. We support building lids over the freeway to reconnect the neighborhood, congestion pricing to improve traffic flow on I-5 with funds dedicated to improved transit, a full environmental impact statement to show the true environmental costs of this project, and union construction jobs with good pay, putting people to work all over the state building safer streets for pedestrians and other vulnerable road users.
All right, thank you, Claire. Next up, we have Ukiah, followed by Susan Bladholm.
Alrighty. Hello, my name is Ukiah Halloran Steiner, and usually I say I'm an organizer with Sunrise Rural Oregon and Youth vs. ODOT. But today I'm not really an organizer. Today I'm just a 17-year-old girl. I've lived on a farm my whole life. It's home to goats and chickens and a big garden and forest. And if you look out the front window in my house, there's this giant, beautiful hayfield. Every year, an old farmer and his son cut and rake and bale and buck that hay to sell. And I remember being a little kid and, before their tractors showed up on our driveway, running through those magical green fields full of grasses that reached past my head. 9 years passed, I turned 16, and the thermometer read 113 degrees in the shade. The temperature rose and rose and didn't fall below 95 degrees, and the heat baked those beautiful fields of hay, turning them brown before each stalk could finish growing. And then they stood, just up to my knees, withered and shrunken from the heat and the drought. My neighbors, those farmers, worked in the heat, harvesting that meager proportion of grass, and they got a lot less hay that year, probably less than any year they'd been alive or that their families had farmed this land. The heat, they said, we're just dealing with Mother Nature. I really wish that was all. So I'm just a 17-year-old girl who dreams about traveling and making art and learning languages and finding a job that I really, really love and raising kids and building community, growing a garden, and hiking on Mount Hood. I'm just a 17-year-old girl who reads the news and listens to transportation experts and scientists and pays attention to historical patterns. And I see the flaws in ODOT's proposed freeway expansions, including the one right out here. So yeah, I'm just a 17-year-old girl, but I've done my research and I'm asking ODOT to do theirs. Hey ODOT, conduct an environmental impact statement on this unstrategic, polluting, dangerous, money-sucking freeway expansion before it's too late.
Susan, I'm sorry that you have to follow that.
Right?
Susan Bladholm, followed next by Robin Sack.
Hello, Commissioner Van Brocklin and Director Chris Strickler and ODOT commissioners. My name is Susan Bladholm and I'm the founder of Frog Ferry. I've spent 35 years of my career here in the Portland, Oregon region in transportation infrastructure, economic development, and operations. Come on, ODOT. It's time to address our climate crisis with integrity and urgency. Integrity and urgency. Integrity is listed as your top value. You have mega projects on the drawing board, and I ask you to take a look at these projects and be honest about how they will impact air quality and induce more car capacity. While your credibility and legacy, your personal legacies, are at stake, our collective health and the safety for many generations to come is at stake as well. Please don't let your legacy be that of continuing to pollute our air. Safety is your second listed value. Please live up to it. As you are aware, 40% of greenhouse gas emissions are caused by transportation, and you have the opportunity to invest in new and active transit to get cars off roadways to help with traffic congestion and free up roadways for things like freight mobility. Excellence is one of your values. How are you driving excellence through innovation? I am advocating for a new green mode of transit steeped in social and environmental equity while advancing climate resilience, supporting disadvantaged communities, and bringing innovation to our region. Equity is also listed as one of your values. Frog Ferry can stand up and start an electrified ferry service within 2 years on the Willamette River for $10 million, from Cathedral Park Dock to the River Place Dock in downtown Portland. I started this project almost 6 years ago because we can't build roadways out of this congestion issue, as Joe has explained. Your mission statement is to provide safe and reliable multimodal transportation system that connects people and helps Oregon's communities and economy thrive. Please live up to that promise and your own values. Conduct the EIS. It's the right thing to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Susan. Next up, we have Robin Sack with Sunrise PDX, followed by Shane Kwiatkowski from Portland Neighbors Welcome.
Hello there, ODOT. My name is Robin Sack. I'm a 16-year-old junior in high school with Sunrise PDX and the Youth vs. ODOT campaign. And I want to start this off by saying I love public transit with my whole entire heart. I love the feeling of riding the bus to see my friends on a Sunday right before school starts, and having my earbuds in my ears, listening to music, and seeing the beautiful scenery around me, and seeing other people being able to enjoy the wonderful privilege that public transit is. And I love the feeling of riding my bike across Alberta Street and just spending time with myself and being able to grow as a teenager in this wonderful city. But I don't love going over a massive pothole while I'm riding the bus. I don't love having to worry about being hit by a car while I'm riding my bike. And what I really don't love is that you are investing $1.4 billion into this destructive project. I I joined the climate movement in September 2020 when I was only 14 years old. I just turned 17 last week, and the fact that so much time has passed but such little has changed brings me to tears, honestly. I've spent hours sobbing to my parents in my kitchen saying, I don't know what to do. There's so much happening around me and I don't know what to do. And they just don't have a response for me. And what I want to bring to your attention tonight is that you are an organization full of adults. And tonight we've had multiple teenagers speak on the fact that this project is not benefiting anybody. It's going to continue to hurt our planet, to hurt multiple generations of people, and to hurt people that have been hurt in the past by this project again and again. And so what I came here to ask you tonight, ODOT, is that you conduct a full environmental impact statement on the Rose Quarter Freeway expansion project. We are asking for lids, not lanes, because that is the right green thing to do. Please start listening to us. It's time to act. Thank you.
We have Shane coming up next, followed by Colin S. Ferguson. We're almost done. We've only got a couple more folks left that are currently signed up. If you still want to testify, you can. We'll either do it at the end and just let people come up, or you can sign up. How are folks feeling? Are we doing good? If you haven't already had the chance to put your post-it note, many of them are falling off. I think this is, ODOT is conspiring with this surface. But we would love for people to continue to put their post-it notes up here. And maybe I'll try and stick the ones up on the floor. Shane, followed by Colin. Shane, take it away.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Shane Kwiatkowski. I'm a resident of the area of 34 years, proudly representing not just Portland Neighbors Welcome, but my own lived experience and slight statements regarding this project. Thank you all for being here. Portland Neighbors Welcome is a grassroots nonprofit that advocates for policies and actions that support and create healthy, vibrant communities. This means advocating for tenant power, preserving affordable housing, and preventing displacement of residents, advocating for zoning changes that allow density in Portland's high-opportunity neighborhoods, and most importantly, seeing planning as an intersectional and multifaceted practice. We believe in building walkable communities full of abundant, affordable housing connected by frequent, reliable transit. While integration and harmony between transit planning, housing planning, and meeting our carbon emissions goals may never be completely aligned, we must ask ourselves as a community, if a multi-billion-dollar investment into widening our highway aligns with our values and goals. We believe that the proposed $1.4 billion Rose Quarter Freeway expansion will not help solve congestion long-term, meet our local and state emissions goals, nor advance equity and restorative justice in the Albina neighborhood. We are therefore joining community partners, including Neighbors for Clean Air and No More Freeways, in demanding that ODOT conduct a full environmental impact statement that studies alternatives to freeway expansion to address congestion, air pollution, and traffic safety. Speakers before me have very well detailed the checkered history and past, and one would say tragic, immoral, heavy consequence of the past. I do not need to speak more upon that fact, and I think others, I respect what they have stated before that. What I will state is that currently speaking, we are not in a highway lane crisis. We are in a racial equity crisis. We're in an affordable housing crisis. We are in a wealth inequity crisis, which I would offer, this is a very convenient project, as many others, to wedge between the growing disparities, square footage-wise and money-wise and ideology-wise, that we think separates us, but may not in fact actually be really clearly stating the connective ties that ties like mycelial threads under the soil of our shared tragedies and traumas. I would also state that I think it is highly important to always listen to the past and the present, as those are the two ways that we build our future. I think it is highly important that ODOT which is a collection of humans, which are collected of pasts, which are collected of their base experiences connected to other humans and ecosystems, because I also wonder about how many animals and trees have died in the past several decades, of which, as a professed animist, myself, not Portland neighbor welcome, I feel exceeding rage in regards to the voiceless screams that die in the night. I would heavily argue to ODOT that you may want to listen to the human and non-human voices, which are your predecessors and your contemporaries, as opposed to trying to create and envision a future which the only inheritances of that past that we are creating now will be people who genuinely and deeply do not care about suffering, or in the ways in which our actions yield manifold consequences, of which we are clearly seeing the future now through the eyes of ourselves. Thank you.
We have Colin next, followed by Chris Smith, followed by Paul Rippey. I know everyone's been very eager to hear Paul. Thank you. Go ahead, take it away.
Right. Hello, ODOT. My name is Colin Ferguson, and I am now starting a career as a user experience researcher, and I'm currently working on a ride-sharing and delivery cooperative. I've been a gig worker since starting with Lyft in 2015, and I am working on a co-op because I want to live a life where I am helping make people's lives better. Since 2015, I have driven over 70,000 miles in Portland, and I can attest that our freeway system is insufficient. However, our freeways are insufficient because they were built without community input nor concern for their well-being. So tonight, I wish to include in my testimony in support of a full and complete environmental impact analysis for key issues, starting with Vision Zero. I'm grateful to ODOT and PBOT for advocating for the Vision Zero campaign. I donate monthly to the International Vision Zero Network. But how is it possible that expanding I-5, how is expanding I-5 going to meet your goal of eliminating traffic deaths? Why are we talking about expanding a freeway system when so many drivers in Portland do not care about following traffic laws and the Portland Police Bureau is not doing much to enforce them? How will expanding I-5 freeway meet the Vision Zero goals? Please include that in your environmental impact analysis. Secondly, in addition to peak hour tolling, I also want the EIS to include street light synchronization. Those two pieces together could ultimately solve all of our traffic problems and eliminate the need for freeway expansion. Third, bring back the Tigard Max Line proposal. We must demand that Metro government offer voters another opportunity to approve Measure 26218. I strongly believe a max line to Tigard. However, it was too easy at the beginning of the pandemic to vote against 26218. Now that we are more settled with our new reality, I am ready to vote yes on a new ballot measure that funds a max line to Tigard. But wait, one moment. Won't $1.45 billion cover the cost of that max line? I'm just wondering. I want our alternative plans to include discussions about the Southwest Corridor Plan. I also want to tell TriMet to stop creating and maintaining automobile-centric transit centers. We need pedestrian and bike-friendly communities surrounding our light rail stations, not parking lots. Lastly, can the environmental impact study include a scenario where I-5 is eliminated on the east side? A fellow Portlander and user interface designer, Forrest Smith, I don't know if he is here tonight, but anyway, on May 5th, 2014, Forrest posted an article about removing I-5 from Portland's east side to his website. His idea proposes design improvements to I-405, making it the official I-5 freeway. Mr. Smith also proposes removing the I-84 and I-5 interchange on the east side and replacing it with prime waterfront real estate. His ideas are remarkably similar to, years ago, a design proposed in one of Portland's long-lost alternative newspapers, which would convert the Markham Bridge into affordable housing. I don't know where you are, Forrest, but I want to invite you back to this conversation. I'll do whatever I can to share your post with ODOT. So again, ODOT and PBOT, can the environmental impact study include a scenario where I-5 is eliminated on the east side? Thank you.
All right, next up, No More Freeways co-founder, Chris Smith. Happy birthday.
Well, thank you to everyone who came out tonight. I had a chance to greet many of you at the door, and I'm delighted that you're all here. I want to put this project in the long context of freeway fighting in this region and where ultimately we need to go. I first became aware of the idea for this project back when we were fighting the Columbia River crossing. And even as that project was failing back in 2010, 2012, people were saying, well, if you do the CRC, the next bottleneck will be Rosewater. And sure enough, ODOT came back after the CRC failed with this project to expand the freeway at Rosewater. I had my first chance to vote against it in 2012 on the Portland Planning and Sustainability Commission. And at that time, there was no obvious funding for it, so we didn't get too worried. We should learn from that mistake. House Bill 2017 really changed the landscape when it provided a funding source for this project, which, as Joe mentioned, has now been largely spent on the Abernathy Bridge in Oregon City. But it brought forward a whole agenda of freeway widening in the region. And in fact, ODOT has gone so far as to create an urban mobility office. And the projects they propose include this project, the revived CRC, the Interstate Bridge Replacement, or IBR, widening 7 miles of I-205 down by Oregon City. They have an expansion on 217 under construction, and now they're targeting the Boone Bridge down in Wilsonville. When we add it all up, it's more than $8 billion of freeway widening. So we deserve not just an EIS on this project, we deserve an EIS on the entire urban mobility vision for this region and what the alternatives to a system that would basically toll drivers significant amounts of money to fund freeway expansions. But we deserve alternatives to that. We deserve a vision of a region where we manage our congestion with equitable congestion tolling and use that to fund biking, walking, and transit to make this region the kind of livable paradise that it should be. So I urge all of you to stay engaged and to keep putting the pressure on ODOT to do just that. We need to see the big picture, and we need to plan for the big picture with a vision of justice and environmental outcomes. Thank you.
All right. I
signed up.
Yeah, I didn't see you, sorry. Can we have Joan go next and then you? Is that cool? Okay, awesome. And Paul, I'm going to take the liberty to put you at the end because no one wants to follow Paul Rippey doing his amazing music testimony, and it would be really unfair to make someone go after him. There's clearly a whole other list of people that signed up that I don't have, so I'm going to let Joan go, and I'm going to go figure out what happened. Joan, Elliott neighborhood resident, take it away.
Hello, my name is Joan Pettit. I live just a few blocks away from here in the Elliott neighborhood. I'm the single mother of 2 black children that I adopted, one of whom graduated from Harriet Tubman Middle School 4 years ago. When my kids and I moved to Portland 14 years ago, we moved to historic Albina, so my kids would grow up in a positive, supportive Black community. This community and schools like Boise Elliott, Humboldt, Harriet Tubman Middle School, and Benson High School have been true gifts to my family. It seems like only a few years ago that I worked with other parents in Inner North and Northeast Portland to reopen Tubman, this school here, so kids like mine could have a dedicated middle school like almost every other neighborhood in town. My kids have benefited from excellent Black administrators and teachers of all races who have real racial and cultural competency, who don't see them as stereotypes, but as students there to learn. Sadly, that's not always been my children's experience in Oregon. If my children have positive self-image and esteem, I attribute that to this Black community, to this neighborhood. It's amazing that this neighborhood has survived. The Oregon Highway Department devastated the community when it tore a hole through Albina, a scar that pollutes the air, makes our community sick, and remains to this day. And now ODOT wants to double down on the harm to this community with an unnecessary freeway expansion. Even worse, they are calling it restorative justice, as if paying Black contractors to further destroy their communities to hurt Black children is anything other than cynical exploitation. Is the health and well-being of my children irrelevant to ODOT? Are their lungs just collateral damage? Shame on ODOT for their cynical marketing, for their branding and rebranding, for their lies, for only seeing cars and trucks on the highway, for not seeing, really seeing the kids in this neighborhood, in this school, who are as deserving of clean air and good schools as every other child in this state. We need a full environmental impact statement. We need to build the caps and rebuild this neighborhood before we think of spending even a penny more on building more freeways.
Sorry, I had somebody at the front door and they were like blocked out. We just had to let some folks in. So next up we've got Art, followed by Carrie Leonard.
Thank you. My name is Art Llewellyn. I've lived in Portland going on 50 years, and around the early 90s, I became an advocate for our light rail system. That was when we had just the line to Gresham. So I dedicated my career towards transportation system planning, and I do extensive studies that helps me to present a assessment of projects, whether they are worth doing or should be opposed. And my assessment on the Rose Quarter widening is that traffic hazards will worsen. On my list of concerns, safety is always first and the cost is last. Traffic hazards will worsen to the degree that there will be more accidents and more severe accidents, more injuries, more passenger, pedestrian, bicycling fatalities. And I believe ODOT knows this for a fact. ODOT management, department heads, Director Chris Strickler, they know this project as proposed will result in deaths on that segment of highway and leading to the highway. I noticed that, well, there's been a redesign that's proposed to go along with the idea of capping the freeways. And I personally do not support the idea of the cap. And who wants to really live near a freeway? I mean, the air pollution is coming up with those cars is not just going to stay down. There's going to blow up in the air, and it will be unhealthy. I think if you make address congestion near a freeway, then you plant trees along the sides of it so that particulates that make their way up can be attracted to the trees and fall to the ground below. And I expect that the development of the area where Tubman School is now is already slated for apartment block housing directly facing the freeway, because that's who I see our mayor, Wheeler, as nothing more than a real estate broker. He's just selling out. I have come to this sort of conclusion on several other projects that ODOT has been a part of, that safety hazards are neglected and kept from the public view. I accuse ODOT and the other agencies involved, which includes WashDOT, PBOT, Portland City Council, Metro Council, and TriMet, of crimes, criminal prosecutable crimes that include intentional misdirection of the project studies to predetermine outcomes, willful concealment from the public of the safety concerns, reckless endangerment, and negligent homicide. If they know that people are going to die and they carry on with the project without they can get away with it.
Art, you're a little bit past your time, but
I passed my time.
Got another remark or two?
Those were the basic statements I wanted to make about the project. Oh, one last thing. There is one thing that I found early on that I could support. Now, it's been canceled on the new design, and it includes that Wheeler and Williams Vancouver intersection had a bicycle ramp across the freeway that would have gone straight up Clackamas Town Center to 7. It's part of the green loop. That's the safe way for bicyclists to make this true, not on Broadway and Widener. They can never be made safe for bicyclists. And bicyclists should voice opposition to that idea, that it's obviously a hazard.
We've got a couple more folks, and I know folks are trying to get through here.
The one thing I said I could support was the idea of relocating the southbound on-ramp over to the Widener, where you would have a downhill entrance ramp and you could have plenty of good visibility. That alone was the one thing since the start of this project that I was able to support and bring to public's attention. That is one safety improvement that could be made. So,
okay,
thank
you.
Folks.
Thank you, I appreciate it. All right. For folks that showed up a little late, please know we have a bunch of postcards that we are going to be mailing to Governor-elect Tina Kotek, as well as to dropping off at ODOT's headquarters tomorrow, as well as to Secretary Pete Buttigieg. So if you have a chance to, if you want to write something and make them know how you really feel, now is your chance to do so. We've got stamps and everything. So check out Vive for that. Okay.
We are rolling. Are you ready?
We're good? Yep. All right. Thank you, Carrie.
You bet. Thank you for letting me go before the singing.
It would be rude to make anyone go up.
For the record, my name is Carrie Leonard, and I'm an Oregon resident, a climate scientist, a mom, and a reluctant transportation advocate. I decided to come here today because yesterday morning at breakfast, my 19-year-old college son asked me if I had lived with impending doom when I was his age. And we discussed that during the greatest nuclear threat that I lived under, it still seemed that the decision makers were honestly trying not to kill us. Now we're the decision makers. And I'm asking that this project, the decisions in this project be made in the trade space. You all are engineers, you know trade spaces. Be made in the trade space of a full environmental impact statement. And I'm asking this because I cannot give up on these kids, and I cannot give up
on our planet. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Josh from the Brooklyn Action Corps, Steve Brown, and then Jacob from 350 PDX.
Hi, Josh Ettrick, speaking for the Brooklyn Action Corps tonight. The Brooklyn neighborhood is in Southeast. It's a couple of miles from here, but we also have some experience bearing the brunt of ODOT's poor decisions. We've reviewed the supplemental environment assessment, and we assert that it doesn't sufficiently consider all of the project's impacts. It doesn't include the study of alternatives to highway expansion, including congestion pricing without adding lanes. A full environmental impact statement is necessary to comprehensively identify all aspects of this massive proposal. And it is still a proposal. ODOT wants you to believe it's a done deal, but it's not. We support the idea of buildable caps over the highway and the Rose Quarter, but this doesn't require expansion of the highway at all. There's no technical reason why capping the freeway has to be coupled to expanding the freeway. They have simply never considered or studied that as an option. Instead of spending billions widening freeways, we believe they should focus on improving safety on their own roads. In the last 18 months alone, in the Brooklyn neighborhood, multiple people have died on Powell and McLaughlin Boulevards, both ODOT roads. In the face of a surge of road user deaths, the opportunity cost of this project is far too high when the money could be better spent to save lives. The freeways, which are already regrettable in the Rose Court area, but even so, they're relatively safe, and the level of funds being spent here simply aren't warranted under the banner of supposed safety project. And we also find that ODOT has not been sufficiently transparent, truthful, or responsive. Important project details have been obscured or hidden from the public and were only revealed after continued action and pressure from community members, many of whom are in this room. In response to deaths on ODOT maintained roads in our own neighborhood, the Brooklyn Action Corps reached out to ODOT multiple times in hopes of improving safety and avoiding further needless deaths and injuries. ODOT never even answered our letters. These join the long list of concerns raised by many other people and that we have also raised at other phases of this project, including negative impacts to walking, biking, and transit on surface streets, ballooning cost estimates, continued investment in fossil fuel infrastructure, the inability to simply solve congestion through expansion, and the air quality in this area. And given these, we continue to oppose this project and we continue to demand a full EIS. Thanks.
All right, next up we have Steve Brown, followed by Jacob, and then Lynn. And then that is the end of people who have signed up other than Paul. And I'm gonna make Paul go last because he's what you're all really waiting for. And it would be really irresponsible to make someone go after him. Steve Brown, your 3 minutes are on the clock.
Sure. Steve Brown, Portland resident. Thank you for the opportunity for this presentation. What I'd like to talk about is the social contract between myself as a member of this community and as a taxpayer and government agencies. We readily and voluntarily pay taxes for organizations like public health because they have a stated mission and goal to keep us safe. We fund government, kind of city government to maintain our cities. And across this country, at the federal level and state levels, you have Department of Transportation. They do a very critical job for this nation. In this complex world, you know, they are the experts in civil engineering and how do we make a highway, how do we, you know, move goods from here to for, you know, how do we transport people? And with that social contract, you know, that's what we're expecting. And society, for that work, we pay them a very handsome salary. Within ODOT, I mean, you have full health insurance, you probably live in a nice home. The education that you received was funded by civic or, you know, city government and money that went into those universities that you got your civil engineer degrees. And so we have this contract, and so now we're at this this dilemma. It's like, why are you going forward with this project when you have so much backlash and so many common sense, like, what are you doing? And I posit, it's like, when they're design and they're civil engineers, like every solution is a mass freeway, that's what they're designed to do. They didn't go to school and hear about all the alternative forms of transportation. So we have this dilemma, and you still ask, why are they going forward with this after so much input? And a large part is how organizations, some manager, if you're managing the largest project, 1.5 billion, you move up in status of with that organization. If you're a civil engineer and you get to be designing the new ramps, once again, it aids in your credibility and your financial well-being. And so there has to be checks on all of our government agencies, and one of them, absolutely we recognize, is the EIS. This document is designed to say, what is the impact to the community that we live in? What is the impact to the planet? So without those types of full assessments, somebody can make claims of whatever, and it's just self-fulfilling for their advancement of their personal career. So this is a plea out to the ODOT, do what's required by law so you can have good information and make sound decisions. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Jacob. Is Jacob still here? Oh, awesome. Thank you, Jacob. Jacob followed by Lynn. Thank you for being here, Jacob. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Cool. Hi, my name is Jacob Appenis. I'm a Portland resident, almost born but mostly raised in the city since I was 2. I've lived in Southwest, Southeast, and Northeast Portland, and I oppose any form of freeway expansion as a part of the I-5 Rose Quarter project. I also support building a layover I-5 in the Albina neighborhood and demand that ODOT to conduct an environmental impact statement on this project. Among the obvious reasons that extra lanes will bring extra pollution into the city and exacerbate our already disastrous climate crisis, freeway expansion will continue to harm Albina and adjacent neighborhoods by inviting dangerous car traffic onto their streets. I came to Harriet Tubman Middle School by bike from the Clinton neighborhood tonight, through Clinton and through Buckman and through Kearns. I enjoyed a very pleasant ride via the neighborhood parkways, but half of a mile of my trip was on Northeast Broadway, one of the most dangerous streets to bike on in Portland, and that's even a street that has a bike lane. Both Northeast Broadway and Wielder are two busy boulevards where businesses, bikers, and pedestrians exist in spite of car traffic. Are we willing to harm businesses by expanding Broadway? Are we willing to accept pedestrian deaths by expanding Wielder? If we expand I-5, the traffic has to go somewhere, and it will go onto Broadway, Wielder, and elsewhere. If we expand I-5, it will lead to more deaths, not just from pollution, not just from climate change, but also from cars colliding into people. Once again, I ask for ODOT to forego their plans to expand I-5. I also demand ODOT to conduct an environmental impact statement on the Rose Quarter project and to change the agency's current mentality of valuing personal vehicles over people. Do better. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Lynn Hanlon. Awesome, thank you so much, Lynn. And then after that, we'll have opportunity for anyone else who has not signed up to officially sign up, and then we will close with Paul.
Hi, my name is Lynn Handlin, and I'm a member of Extinction Rebellion PDX, but tonight I'm just representing me. And I mean, first of all, this is so ridiculous that we're here, still doing this. Climate change is real. I'm pretty sure that even all you ODOT folks understand that. I assume that some of you have kids and grandkids. I'm not sure why you're not considering their futures, but clearly you're not. It is not too late to do something about climate change. I mean, it's here. We've got fires and flooding, and my adult daughter was turning blue with the smoke. I mean, it was... Anyway, we all know the problems, and it's not too late to minimize the damage, but we have to act like there is a climate emergency, because clearly there is a climate justice emergency, and this project is just emblematic of all the wrong things, spending huge piles of money doing this dangerous, ridiculous project that is just going to make everything worse in the name of reducing commute times for some adults for, you know, like a day or two before the induced demand makes it worse. And you're doing this at the cost of these kids' future. This is, this just makes me crazy, and I have notes and I just don't even care because, like, y'all have heard way too many people here who are, you know more about this, and these kids who've spent endless hours, you know, instead of like going and doing fun things, they're learning about freeways and crap. And it's like, it's ridiculous, but now apparently these kids know and understand this problem better than you ODOT folks do. So I don't really need to say that much more. You absolutely need to do the environmental impact study. I mean, not doing it is just morally and financially bankrupt. And you need to, the lid makes sense, you know, covering it, will at least start to, you know, wipe out some of the damage that ODOT has caused in the past. That's great. And, you know, congestion pricing, yay, that's all good. But honestly, what you really need to do is stop widening freeways and start listening to the kids. Thanks.
All right, we have one speaker that signed up officially left. Before we have Paul grace us with the ballad of our times, is there anyone else that would like to testify? Yeah, we've got two. Awesome. One and two. Yeah, come on. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, you're fine. I know you came in. I'm glad you're here. I feel bad that I had accidentally locked you outside of the building, so the least I could do was let you testify.
Thank you. I appreciate you opening the door and hosting this gathering since they won't do it for us. Hi, my name is Pichika Sornsena. I am an environmental studies major from University of Oregon, studied sustainable development and policies. And something I wanted to bring across was that the city was intendedly designed to be landlocked. The freeway was landlocked for the public system to be enhanced. Therefore, the funding should be allocated towards green infrastructures, such as the TriMet system, such as bike lanes and walkways, especially targeting towards Albina communities where there's already low car ownership. It doesn't really make sense to justify putting a whole freeway for people who don't really have cars versus people who can walk or may use wheelchairs or bikes. Therefore, you're already increasing the demographics who can use these spaces. So I asked for you to reconsider the design, to maybe look at the TriMet operations headquarters on the Southeast 7th and Center Stop. They have a really great design where they have a TriMet system in the middle with vegetations and art that also center historical pieces, and then they also have cars, big car lanes that's also paired with bike lanes and also sidewalks. And I think that's a really good reference for a potential way to help the community and do better for a more resilient and sustainable environment. And you're already a leading sector for polluting the environment. So by increasing infrastructure to pollute more, it doesn't really decrease your greenhouse gas emission in any way at all. So yeah, I recall for also a public outreach as well, because I don't think that the public of the Albina community actually know that this project is actually going on, and as well as the environmental impact assessment as well. And I thank you again for hosting this, and yeah, signing off.
You're good.
Thank you.
Great. Good evening. 3 minutes. We're starting now.
Hello, my name is Tegan Velo. I'm here representing Beeline Urban Delivery. We are a sustainable, small, local delivery and freight company. I submitted a letter yesterday that goes further into the points that we want to make, but just quickly I wanted to hit on one point that really came to mind from listening to other people's testimony. Well, first, as context, one of our goals as a company, among other things, is to reduce congestion and pollution by performing deliveries that would have otherwise been done by typical vans and trucks in our electric freight tricycles. And the point I want to hit on is that I categorically reject any narrative that pits the needs of pedestrians, cyclists, the environment, and the citizens who live here against the needs of freight, trucking, and the economy. Those needs are not mutually exclusive. We've shown that firsthand. Our impact reporting shows that in 2021 alone, our electric freight tricycles prevented over 500,000 pounds of CO2 from entering the atmosphere and reduced over 320,000 traffic miles that would have been done by traditional vehicles. So if we want to improve freight mobility through our region, there are far cheaper and more effective ways to do so than expanding I-5. And I do believe that's a noble goal, to be improving freight mobility through our region. But we can do that by spending money on transit, cycling, and pedestrian infrastructure that will get cars off the road. And we can do it, as many other people have said, by just doing the congestion pricing. We do not need to build more lanes to fix this problem. Thank you.
All right, the moment you've all been waiting for. Paul, come on up.
Overselling it, Eric.
No, I'm not overselling it.
So 5 years ago, thank you. So I'm Paul Rippey, and I live in St. John's. And 5 years ago, I have to stand up because I'm going to do this. So 5 years ago, I was reading about expanding the freeway, and it seemed like such an insane, ridiculous idea that, I mean, seriously, I was like, why are we doing this? Why are we wasting our time talking about this? And so I called up to get an appointment to testify to the city council. And I knew I wanted to sing a song, but of all the different reasons not to widen I-5, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, because I could talk about how it ruins the character of Portland by putting people in cars instead of public transport. Or I could have talked about the inherent racism of urban highways. Or I could have talked about how it undercuts all the public transportation. I could have talked about the fact that the planet is dying and you want to build more concrete highways with more cars. But I said, no, I've only got 3 minutes, so let's get something simple that everybody can understand, and that's the principle that it doesn't work. So I said, because I wasn't sure, I mean, the city council is supposed to know everything else, but they might not have known about induced demand, so that's why I wrote this song. The thing we need to understand is induced demand. In the 60s, we built the interstate. In the 70s and 80s, it was looking kind of great. In the 90s and aughts, we said, well, let's build another lane, and now, by God, they want to do it again. But the thing we need to understand is induced demand. Now a lot of folks like to drive around town, and they can't help notice that things have slowed down. But adding more lanes is never done, because if we build them, they will come. And the thing we need to understand is induced demand. I wish Tom McCall was still alive.
Yeah.
He tore down Harbor Drive. He was a Republican, by the way. I'm just saying. And now Dennis Buchanan has gone away. He blocked the Mount Hood Expressway. People of courage, people of goodwill. I hope we got that kind of leader still, but the thing we need to understand is induced demand. And of course we'll need more buses and Macs. That's just transportation facts. But the way to get the highway lobby off our backs is with a comprehensive congestion tax. And the thing we need to understand is induced demand. In the 60s, we built the interstate. Let's stop the madness now before it's too late. And the thing we need to understand this indistinct man. And just I want to say, if any of the Sunrise people that are here, there's no group of people I love more than you guys. I seldom cry, but I've heard you all singing and made me cry. So if any of you are going to be singing, possibly, I'll be.
All right, thank you, everybody. We've got some very, very short things to finish with, if I can find the right page. We got a lot of people to thank really quick. Claire Block, Emily Geist, Joan Pettit, Eric Mandel, Brian Davis, Nikisha Nathan, Mary Pivito, Alan Rudwick, Alan Kessler, Vivek Jeevan. Vivek, did I get your name last night? How do I pronounce your last name? Jeevan, all right. Zach Rays, John Kirabek, Dan, Alfred, thank you so much for our tech team. All of us via live stream. We live in the future, and just because we don't have all of ODOT's money, we can still have an amazing public comment period. This is more tech than ODOT had. For a $1.4 billion freeway expansion, we are somehow providing more public comment opportunity than they are. Please, if you haven't already, go see Vivek about those postcards. Every one of those postcards will be hand or postal delivered to Pete Buttigieg, Governor-elect Kotek, or the Rose Quarter team. We've got all of our Post-it notes here. It's looking a little one-sided so far. If anyone would like to change the calculus or add one way or the other, please do so. And who here has already submitted comment online? Written comment. Oh, that's almost universal. That's amazing. Who here has gotten at least one other person to submit public testimony? All right. So we know what we got to do between now and midnight tomorrow. No More Freeways PDX.com/lids not lanes. It's on the QR code of the stuff that's been handed out all around here. And I'm not going to read what all of No More Freeways is testifying, but you will be able to see it tomorrow. Chris, Joe, and I are showing up at ODOT's headquarters, or their consultant's headquarters, with a thumb drive of about 10 gig of files. And Chris swung by their offices a couple days ago, and they were not really thrilled that we were showing up with 10 gig of public testimony and comment, both these type of events, but also all of our quantitative analysis of all the spots where they're lying to us about air pollution, climate change. There's a lot that ODOT is about to receive, and you will be able to read our remarks there. Thank you so much. It's really an honor and a blessing that so many people care about this. As someone that's been doing this work for the last 5 years, I can't express how much gratitude I feel seeing so many people continue to show up and continue to shout that climate leaders don't widen freeways. Thank you all very much. All right, now who wants to help tear stuff down?